What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stuckey.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is your NFC betting preview part 2. In this episode, we'll be previewing the NFC North and the NFC West. We've also got our part 1 NFC episode out this morning where we go team by team through the NFC East and the NFC South. As always, here to help me break it down, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey. Stuck, what's going on?
What's going on, brother? Rocking Packers today for the NFC North, the up-and-coming NFC North, which is becoming one of the strongest divisions in the NFL with some exciting new quarterbacks. Shame what happened to J.J. McCarthy, but really intriguing division. And then excited to talk some Niners as well.
All right, so let's jump right into the NFC North. I think there's 3 teams here that have a legit shot to win the division, with the Lions leading the way, a win total of 10.5 at BetMGM, minus 135 to the over. They're plus 135 to win the division, which just speaks to how tight this race could be. You know, you don't have a minus, a juiced up favorite with better than 50-50 odds. Detroit is a team that's favored, I think, in 13 of their 17 games, according to the look-ahead lines. I think they could be in for a little bit of regression, but the offensive line should still be good. The defense, once again, it seems like they do this every year now, but once again, they overhaul the cornerback group. They got Carlton Davis in there. So I think that, they got Arnold, they draft Arnold, got Amik Robertson from the Raiders. So we kind of know what their offense is going to be. With Gibbs and Montgomery and Laporta and Amon-Ra in the line. So let's just go right into the defense. Last year, you were pretty skeptical that last year's iteration of the retooled secondary at corner especially was going to work. Where are you on that unit this season?
Yeah, I mean, their defense was a disaster last year, but still they probably should have went to the Super Bowl. The offense is going to be good. I mean, I guess Amon-Ra has to stay healthy, kind of like CeeDee Lamb, because the wide receiver depth. Maybe Jameson Williams can step up this year. Because,
at least you got Gibbs, who you can kind of move around. So
and Laporta
gives him a little more than Dallas, but that would be a big blow.
Because that wide receiver depth is definitely pretty much the only question I have. Their offensive line's elite. You lose Jackson, but add Zeitler, and everyone else is back. Probably the best offensive line in the NFL. And you still have Ben Johnson there running the show, who's going to be a head coach sooner than later. One of the better coordinators in the game. Yeah, they went 12-5 last year, but definitely overachieved. There's always going to be some variance with Campbell aggression. Goff is still a pumpkin outdoors and against like really elite defenses, in my opinion. But he doesn't really play many outdoor games this year, which is a big benefit to the Lions, who are a true Super Bowl contender if the secondary works out. So they address it in the draft and in the market. You add DJ Reader. We'll see when he's ready to go along with McNeil. You add Davenport to go with Hutchinson. The linebackers are still meh to me, especially in coverage. I'm just curious to see how the secondary works out. I mean, Davis, Arnold, and Rakestraw are all dealing with injuries right now. I mean, if the season started next week, you're starting Vildor and which is a disaster. But I just want to see who works out where. I assume Arnold, Carlton Davis, Meek Robinson in the slot is what they want. And it should be better than last year. I still don't know what Aaron Glenn wants to do. Like, I don't know if he knows what to do. Like, he keeps changing. I think he wants to play press man, but like maybe you can do that with Davis and Arnold. But there's still some questions there. I mean, Davis was not good last year. Arnold is a rookie. Kirby Joseph can't cover anybody. Couldn't cover you on the back end as your free safety. Probably going to move Branch to strong safety. He's a good player. I think he can play anywhere. But there's definitely still questions in the secondary, and the linebackers aren't great in coverage. So that's what I worry about. It's their pass D, but the defensive line should be better at generating pressure. The way that they like rush the passer though is, they kind of go horizontal, not vertical, and it's like a contained thing, which is why they're really good against the run. But against mobile quarterbacks who can just eventually elude that it doesn't really work. And it doesn't lead to many sacks, but it does lead to a good rush D. So I still have questions about this defense and just what Aaron Glenn wants to do philosophically. It's big difference from the offense where Ben Johnson is set in stone and he's good at what he does. But at least you're not running Jerry Jacobs and Vildor out there at corner this year. So true. Because I mean, a couple of years ago when everyone got hurt, CJ Gardner-Johnson and it was a disaster. But Lions, I project 10.1. So I show a little bit of value on the under. And if I had to bet it, I would go under. Much tougher division. I have them with the 8th hardest schedule in the NFL. Still questions about the D. And but true Super Bowl contender if the secondary comes together.
Yeah, the fact, like you said, the fact that they were able to come that close to the Super Bowl with that bad of a secondary that just collapsed over the second half of the year just speaks to how good their offense is, but a little bit fragile, like you said, Amon-Ra. So this is a team that if I'm just betting on median outcome, I think the Bears are going to be a lot better. I think the Packers, who I know you like, are going to be a lot better. And, the Vikings probably will be bad, but even the market might be overestimating just how bad the Vikings are. Because they just have Mullins or Darnold just tossing it to Jefferson. Who knows what could happen there? So tough division. Green Bay 9.5 -145 to the over is the win total at BetMGM. 2-1 to win the division. So that seems very doable because I think the Lions are a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more fragile, whereas the Packers, I really like what they've done. They got rid of Joe Barry which I think is addition by subtraction, defensive coordinator. And in terms of their offense, they're like the opposite of the Lions. I mean, they just have so many solid to good receivers and tight ends and running backs that if one goes down, like their best receivers probably, but talent-wise, is probably Christian Watson. But they could treat him like their 4th receiver, and they don't really miss a beat because this team is just very balanced and they're very young, so they should only be getting better. So I think there's a lot to like with Green Bay. Talk to me.
Yeah, does Love, does he take a step back? He was so good in the second half of the year, not as good in the first half of the year, but they did make some schematic and play calling changes, which kind of led to that specifically early in the games. But gave him a lot of money for kind of a short sample size. But that's today's NFL. You find who you think could be your franchise quarterback, you pay him. And I don't think it's as egregious as, Daniel Jones or Baker Mayfield. A lot of potential here. Yeah, the weapons are great. I do think that Aaron Jones to Josh Jacobs is a step back. Overall, we'll see if Jacobs can find his form from 2 seasons ago, not last year. The offensive line is definitely a concern for me. They just have to stay healthy. So, Jordan Morgan is going to play right guard. The rookie's moving to right guard from tackle. You're going to have Jenkins at left guard, Myers at center, and then Walker and Tom at tackle, which is fine. Tom is good. And Walker was the 6th best offensive tackle from weeks 9 through 18, which is really impressive for a 2022 7th rounder. So he flashed. The problem is if either of their tackles or, get hurt, it's bad. I mean, you're talking Andre Dillard, Kadeem Telford. So there's even talk like Bakhtiari, they might bring him back as a depth piece, or they might bring him back if one of those guys gets hurt, because now Bakhtiari's saying he wants to play. But there's zero, they got to stay healthy. But all the other weapons are there. I'm a believer in Jordan Love, LaFleur. So the defense is more interesting to me. They had really bad injury luck. You got to remember, they won 9 games, went to the playoffs with horrible injury luck on the defensive side too. But the defense now, I think, is a much better fit. Joe Barry was a disaster. We've talked about that, just so passive. It's going to be the opposite with Hafley. You're going to move from a 3-4 to a 4-3 base, mainly nickel, much more aggressive, heavy man quarters on the back end, which I think suits these corners well. We'll see if Stokes can take the next step. I think that's important. And then they see who emerges as the safety next to McKinney, which I think was a great ad. But maybe it's Bullard, maybe it's the other rookie Williams. Maybe one of them plays in the slot where you also have Nixon. But curious to see how that works out. The defense could end up, they have a lot of pieces here. Rashawn Gary now further removed from his injury. I think he'll be better. You did lose an important linebacker, went to San Fran. We'll talk about that later. But the pieces are here. It's how will they transition? How will these players transition life in a 4-3, with an attacking front? This defense is going to be all about getting havoc, sacks, tackles for loss, complete different mindset. Can Walker and the linebackers adjust? I think it's a better fit for Kenny Clark. But now your defensive ends are going, more hands down up on the line. So it could go one of two ways. It could just be a disaster early, but I think, if everyone picks this up, it's going to be a much better fit, the aggressiveness and how they're covering on the back end. So yeah, I like the upside there. One thing that I worry about, a couple things, the schedule gets much tougher, although they only have 7 road games. The kicker issues and the special teams. I mean, you got Greg Joseph and Anders Carlson are in a competition, which is like who can fit more clowns into the car. Is how that's going. So it's not going well. And the kicking was a disaster last year. I'll never forgive Anders Carlson for missing that extra point against the Steelers, which cost the Packers the cover. But special teams are definitely a concern, specifically at kicker. But all the pieces are here. If I wanted to pick a division winner, I would go with the Packers. But it's going to come down to offensive line staying healthy. And then can this defensive scheme change, I think, is the right move, but can it work early and in year one?
Yeah, I just think, that defense, Barry took over a defense that was 10th to DVOA the year before he got there. The first year he was there, 2021, it was 12th, then 27th and 25th. And I think the talent was comparable all of those years. So I think it's addition by subtraction. I don't think it could get too much worse. So, and then the other side of it, Jordan Love, I think the fact that, like you said, they made some schematic changes, and just the fact that the team was so young that you kind of expect them to start slow and get better. And over the second, half of the season, Jordan Love, 26 touchdowns, 5 picks, 7.8 yards per attempt, including the playoffs, had a winning record against playoff teams over that stretch, beat the eventual champ KC, beat the NFC runner-up Detroit, dumped the number 1 offense in the league, the highest scoring team, Dallas, and lost by 3 to the eventual NFC champ San Francisco. So they were competitive against the best teams in the league. Jordan Love took a clear step forward. I really like this team. I think, there might be some growing pains on defense, but you're talking about a defense that was 27th and 25th in DVOA the last 2 years. Can't really get much worse. All right. The Chicago Bears are the next team up in the NFC North. Their win total is 8.5, with it juiced to the over as well. And that just kind of speaks to, You got 3 teams minus 165. So it's well juiced to the over. That just speaks to how good this division is. You have 3 teams that's essentially expected to be above 500. Chicago plus 325 for the division. And I mean, I think they're putting Caleb Williams in a really good position. So you have DJ Moore, you add Keenan Allen, you add Rome Odunze, a top 10 pick, Commit and Everett at tight end, Swift at running back is underrated add. The offensive line has been getting better. I think it'll be okay. I don't think it'll be amazing, but I don't think it'll be terrible. I think it'll be good enough. And I just have a hard time seeing how Caleb Williams really performs too poorly, just given his supporting cast. And on defense, I mean, there are some question marks there, but you added Sweat last year, so that's going to help. And you have Bayard at safety. He's solid. The back end is solid. Jalen Johnson was the #1 rated corner from PFF. He's playing with a chip on his shoulder because he did not make the NFL top 100, I think it was. So, there's enough pieces here, I think, defensively, but the defense is where I have the most questions. What about you?
I love the hire of Shane Waldron, first of all, and I think that he's just a great coordinator to have for Caleb Williams in his first year. And he is McVay tree, but he started in New England, I believe. McDaniels has like Earhart Perkins influence. Like, it's very quarterback friendly, play action with some pushing the ball downfield. I just think like it's such a good system for Caleb to come into. And you mentioned it. Yeah, he's got great weapons around him. He has the arm talent. Super high win total for a rookie quarterback. Like, rookie quarterbacks are, no matter how much talent, it could be hit or miss.
But they don't usually have supporting cast like this. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
no,
they're not usually, because teams are usually using that pick on a quarterback. Yeah. They don't usually have those picks to get also a Keenan Allen, a DJ Moore the year before, and a Rome Odunze in the draft. So that it's a unique situation, to say the least.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he's in a good spot, and I think he'll be successful. He'll have his off script plays where he creates, and as long as he doesn't get too wild there, I think he'll have success in this offense. The only concern I have is interior offensive line. You got rid of Lucas Patrick, who's mentioned before is a dumpster fire at center. Ryan Bates was going to be the center. He's hurt, so now there's a big competition at center and right guard. I don't know what's going on with Nate Davis. You brought in Coleman Shelton. I think he probably is the best answer. He has experience with Waldron in the past. But can Nate Davis step up at right guard? But so it's mainly the only question I have, other than like, can Caleb Williams make the leap? Which you have to ask with every rookie quarterback. Yeah, the defense was awesome in the second half of the year. Part of that coincided with a Sweat acquisition. They were able to get more pressure. Eberflus did change up his scheme a bit. Part of it also was they were lucky with turnovers. They also faced like Sam Howell, O'Connell, Dobbs, Flacco, Heineke. So people wanted to say like, oh, it was either lucky and because of turnovers they faced, or it was all because of Sweat. And it's the truth somewhere in the middle. They definitely improved. But they definitely were aided by some luck. And you got to remember the numbers in the first half of the year. Their defensive coordinator they had like all that before the Chiefs game. He quit or whatever. He had all that turmoil, and the locker room was a mess. The defense was a mess. And then Eberflus took over starting week 4. And then you started to see incremental gains. So it started to happen a little bit before that. In those first 3 games, their defense was a disaster. Very manageable schedule too, which is another thing that sets up really well for Caleb Williams. I mean, look who they play the first 2-3 months of the season. Later on, you have some tough games at San Fran, at Detroit, at Minnesota, Seattle, at Green Bay to finish. But before then, like Arizona, New England, Washington, Jacksonville, Carolina, the Rams, Indianapolis, Houston, Tennessee. Think what all these teams I'm saying? Think about their pass defenses. Very manageable pass defense schedule and just overall schedule for Caleb Williams to kind of ramp up and adjust. Overall, I have them with the 10th easiest schedule in the NFL. I can't adjust, and I still have to have some doubt based on my numbers. By the way, the Bears were 2-6 in one possession games. They probably should have won more games last year. So I project 8.6. No play for me on the Bears, but yeah, if Williams is a superstar, and this defense, they didn't really do much to they're kind of just running it back. But you have a lockdown corner in Johnson. The question is, like, can he have that good of a year again? I don't know. I have my doubts, but he definitely has all the tools. The secondary, I mean, Stevenson and Gordon, they have a lot of potential. I like them. Brisker as well. The linebackers they spent a lot of money on are solid. The defensive line outside of Sweat is pretty concerning. It's not great. So I'm curious to see what Eric Washington, the wrinkles he brings, their new defensive coordinator, with what Eberflus has. But I definitely think the defense takes a step back to what we saw the second half of last year. But definitely finally an exciting time to be a Bears fan. Finally might have their quarterback, but it's a pass for me this year.
Yeah, it's just really hard to find a bet for Chicago because the division is loaded. The NFC is very competitive. The Williams is the favorite for rookie of the year. So it's just really tough to find a bet on Chicago. I don't want to fade Chicago, but maybe a team that I'm just betting week to week because I do want to invest before, the market fully adjusts, because I think this offense is going to be really good even in year one. And I know right now the book, you kind of have to, like you said, be somewhat conservative with the rating for Williams, but it's a very unprecedented situation. So, and I think like you said, the matchups are pretty easy. So maybe some overs, maybe some Bears spread, but nothing on the futures. Just really tough spot for them in third place in this NFC North. The Vikings 6.5 -150 to the over, 9-1 for the division. Of course, they lose rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy. Sam Darnold slated to start week 1. Nick Mullins could make starts as well. You have TJ Hawkinson probably going to miss part of the season, coming back from that knee injury that he had late in the year. Jordan Addison potentially could get suspended at some point.
He's also hurt right now.
Yeah, and he's hurt. But Justin Jefferson's back. Jalen Naylor, it looks like he's having a good camp. Probably going to be the number 3. So, I don't think, at least heading into the year, I didn't, because there's a lot of uncertainty with rookie quarterbacks, and it's not like McCarthy's a top 1 or 2 pick. I didn't really have a massive difference between him and Sam Darnold. Long term, obviously,
I had no difference.
Right. Long term, obviously, McCarthy's giving you the upside, but short term, I think it's more about this defense. Like, does Flores have enough pieces to work with to kind of work his magic? The cornerback situation is, they have Gilmore now. He's older.
Gilmore and Shaq Griffin on the outside.
Yeah,
Murphy in the slot.
So that could go either way. Like it does have some upside. There's some talent there, but what do you think with this defense? Because we know Flores can work magic, but it didn't quite work out last year that way at all times because it just didn't have pieces.
Yeah, their defense is way better than anyone could have predicted. I think their secondary in general is better than it was last year on paper. But yeah, Gilmore's getting up there in age. Shaq Griffin, Byron Murphy's not great, but their safeties are really smart. Harrison Smith can bind him on the back end, clean up a lot. Flores can trust him to do some complex things. I love the signing of Van Ginkel and Grenard. Ivan Pace he's a menace, man. He's so small, but I love the way he plays, and Flores can do a lot with him. Defensive line, not much there. So, but Flores, the offense, it's really a shame what happened to the Vikings. Like, if they had, especially with Hawkinson, with Addison, McCarthy went down, but if they still had Cousins with this roster. But, I love the get of Aaron Jones. You still have Jefferson. You still have 2 really good tackles. Just a lot to work with. at the end of the day, I want to invest in the Vikings somehow because Kevin O'Connell, I love as a play caller, just as a leader. And then Flores, I love too. Flores is a absolute menace, mad scientist. I mean, in 2022, when he was with Miami, they ran the least amount of cover 2. In Minnesota last year, they ran the most amount of cover 2. Minnesota led the league in cover 0. They didn't cover 0 11% of the time. Also led the league dropping 8. He will have 3 3 defensive ends in there at one time, and in the up the middle. I mean, just what he does to confuse quarterbacks. Who knows what he's going to come up with this year? So like part of me just wants to trust them to overperform. But I do think, like the quarterback situation isn't great, but it was worse last year. So, I think riddle me this, if Minnesota goes to the playoffs, then, I mean, isn't it almost a lock that O'Connell wins Coach of the Year?
Yeah, I mean, I would think definitely about 50-50. I wouldn't say a lot because you never know.
I don't mean
one other.
Yeah,
it would be probably above 50-50 for sure.
Yeah, so I think buying the upside of the Vikings, because this team can't win the Super Bowl, right? And the division is so tough, but I think if everything works out in their favor, they can snag a wild card. But if that happens, then maybe you split the bet. O'Connell Coach of the Year. That's if they get to 8-9 wins with Darnold, all the stuff that went on with Addison, Hawkinson, McCarthy getting hurt, all that adds to the allure. It's the narrative award too. You get to the playoffs with Darnold in that division. Likable guy, I think matters some. So yeah, I kind of want to just trust the staff. So that's how I would look at the Vikings.
Yeah, I want to invest in the Vikings, but I want them against the Giants in week 1 because you mentioned Flores just against a rusty Daniel Jones.
And who's covering Jefferson?
Right, exactly. but the issue is, as good as Flores is, look at this slate. This is why I want them in week 1, but then I might wait until mid-season and then kind of buy low on them, because listen to this after the Giants.
Brutal.
Versus San Francisco and Shanahan offense, versus Houston, that's CJ Stroud and Slowick, at Green Bay. So then you're facing Love and that team that put up 48 in the playoffs. Then against the Jets at home. So then you're facing Aaron Rodgers and a really good defense. Then you have a bye, but you have to play Detroit. And then you go to LA to face McVay. So Flores is kind of meeting his match. I mean, you're talking about Shanahan.
Colts.
Yeah. And then the Colts are next. And let me not even sleep on Steichen because he's really good too. And then at Jacksonville, I mean, it's not an easy game, but it's an easy game compared to some of the other ones. But there's just really no let up on this schedule. I mean, you have versus Arizona in week 13, at Seattle in week 15, and that's about it. It's just this team is going to have
3 hardest schedules in the NFL.
Yeah. That's what kind of holds me back. But if they're sitting there and they're 1-7 or 2-6 after that brutal stretch, maybe you buy low. That they should be getting Hawkinson back. Maybe Addison's getting healthy. Maybe you're either going to make a quarterback switch or Darnold's kind of growing into the system. So I think it's going to have to be a second half team if they're good. I think because I just San Francisco, Houston, Green Bay, Jets, Detroit, Rams. I don't know if I see more than 1 or 2 wins. So they have to be the Giants.
So maybe just some couch change on O'Connell Coach of the Year.
Yeah, if he gets there with that strength of schedule, yeah. I mean that would be something. All right, NFC West, San Francisco 11.5 plus 105 to the over, minus 200 for the division. Looks like they're favored in every game, but every year we kind of look at San Francisco and say, could be some regression, and then it's like moot. But I mean, Trent Williams, he's not in camp
right now.
right,
He's
and
golfing,
that's
golfing
big
in
because
Missouri.
you talk about clown cars. I mean, the rest of this offensive line is kind of shaky, and then we still haven't reached a deal with Ayuk. So those are two important guys kind of hanging in the balance. The defense, I mean, they lost Armstead. The defense kind of could go either way. It could be worse than last year. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the Niners here?
Yeah, a couple of the additions that I liked on the defense side, Malik Collins at linebacker and Devondre Campbell, who have a prior experience in this exact scheme. So that really helps. So yeah, it's hard to talk about the Niners without knowing what's going to happen with Ayuk. And I mean, Trent Williams is just so important,
Massive
to everything that they do. And then so is Ayuk. Like Deebo Samuel's more of a gadget guy, and then you'd have Jennings and Pearsall. Like your wide receiver room becomes
because Ayuk is the X, right?
Yep.
Ayuk is the X. So now you don't have a guy who can just line up and beat coverage at the line of scrimmage, like you said. Ayuk is, I mean, Deebo is more of a, with a free release, go move him around, that kind of thing. But yeah, who's your X? Who's your X?
Yep.
That's my question. Is it Jennings?
I guess, yeah. I would assume.
I mean, he had a great Super Bowl, but yeah, not
going to be.
ideal.
It's not going to be Trent Taylor. So
Chris Conley.
Yeah, so I mean, I project them at 11 wins right now. But there's some downside with this team, and I think that Arizona is improving. I think Seattle is getting better. The Rams, like, this division is not as big of a joke as it has been in some years recently. So if I had to bet it, I would bet under right now, especially with the uncertainty with some of these guys. And even if they come back, they might be signed like a couple weeks in, or they might not be ready right away. Like, are they in game shape? Or they might not play week 1 against the Jets, which is like one of your harder games early on in the season. I think this is it's a pretty backloaded schedule. After New York, you got Minnesota, Rams, New England, Arizona. Then at Seattle, Kansas City, Dallas. So the first 5 weeks are pretty easy, which maybe helps their case. Overall, I have the Niners with the 11th hardest schedule in the NFL, close to league average. But I project 11 right now, but a lot of uncertainty. Hard. Secondary still has questions, for sure. Going to kick Lenore outside. Looks like they're going to probably roll with Bernardo Green in the nickel. I think that's the way that it's going to go. 2nd round pick out of Florida State. Maybe it's your guy Womack. Your boy Womack ends up getting in there. But there's definitely still some questions in the secondary outside of Ward. But I do like the signing of Campbell, because Greenlaw is going to probably miss most of the year. I do like the signing of Collins. A lot of scheme familiarity there. So, yeah, defense did have issues last year, especially against the run. Very passive. Bringing in a new, you got rid of your defensive coordinator, who I don't think either of us liked last year, in Wilkes, and it was really passive, and his adjustments were really bad. One of the reasons why I bet San Fran first half in the Super Bowl, and you had Kansas City for the game, was I was afraid of Wilkes not making adjustments, which she didn't. And so you're going to bring, Nick Sorensen is, a lot of scheme familiarity. So, like, really basic static defense here with your cover 3 base with quarters. But so it aligns with what they want to do. He says that he wants to be more aggressive, play free. It's what every coordinator says. But they want to be basic, play. I think they want to be a little more aggressive. The curious thing here is Brandon Staley is a defensive assistant and kind of in Sorensen's ear. And, Sorensen was the passing game coordinator. they have two completely different philosophies. I mean, Staley's all about like a very complex Fangio tree. Sorensen from the San Fran wants to be more basic, static. So I'm curious to see how, like, does he just incorporate some of those wrinkles, how that works into the defense? Just something to keep an eye on. But a lot of uncertainty with San Fran right now. If anything, I'd go under, but pass as of now.
Yeah, if the back end of that schedule you mentioned, it's backloaded. Week 12 at Green Bay, week 13 at Buffalo, week 14 versus Chicago, week 15 versus the Rams, week 16 at Miami, week 17 versus Detroit. So that's probably going to decide that win total, right? Oh, and then, a couple weeks before that, they come out of the bye with Tampa and Seattle, but heading into the bye versus Kansas City and versus Dallas. So yeah, it's the first 6 games. They'll probably go, they probably can reel off, I would say, probably 5-1 or 4-2, because they usually beat the Rams, which are the second hardest team in those first 6 weeks. The Jets are the only are the toughest one. But yeah, Kansas City, Dallas, then 2 easier ones, and then at Green Bay, at Buffalo, versus Chicago, versus Rams, at Miami, versus Detroit. There's definitely a potential there where if things aren't going smoothly, they could go under. But yeah, got to know what's going on with Trent and IU, because that they materially affect like your point spreads projections.
Yeah, which is why it'd be under or nothing.
Yeah. Rams 8.5, minus 155 to the over is the win total at BetMGM, plus 325 to win the division. This Ram team, like the offense, the defense seems to always find a way to overperform despite, overperform the talent level. Now they did start to add some talent. Jared Verse out of Florida on the edge. They add Braden Fisk in the second round. So, they're starting, they lose Donald, but this Ram team, well coached, solid offense, good quarterback. I mean, they're probably better than an 8.5. They're probably a 9-win team, in my opinion, at least. But tough. There's a lot of those kind of teams in the NFC. So, where are you on LA?
Yeah, if the offense stays healthy, it'll be good. Can Stafford, Cup, can they stay healthy? It's pretty much the only question. The McVay offense, it's going to be good. Heavy 11, it's going to be productive. It's all just about health. I like, you bring in Jonah Jackson at guard, kick Steve Avila into center. That's his natural position in college too. So yeah, I think that they'll be good. And if you mentioned they got 2 kids out of Florida State in Verse and Fisk last year, they don't have a lot of draft capital, and they hit last year on Young and Turner. Can they hit again and can both those guys have as good of a year? I mean, they had outstanding years. Can all 4 of those young guys have good years? Because the secondary is concerning to me. I don't love the safeties. Trey White, is he going to be healthy? And when? Coming off a really bad injury. Darius Williams, he had a good year last year. I'm still not completely sold on him. And you lost Aaron Donald. I mean, he got triple teamed. Maybe part of the reason why some of these younger guys had great years.
Yeah, does Turner take a step back? Does Brown take a step back without Donald there?
I would imagine,
because both of those guys were very, very good last year. I mean, just so much better than you would have ever thought they would be. So I have the defense taking a big step back after the loss of Donald. The other thing is this team, because of some of the things that have happened in recent years, no depth. What does that mean? We laughed about it last year on the podcast, and their special teams ended up being they can't get. I was just at their game.
The worst rated I've ever had.
Yeah. Cardi or whatever his name is, whoever they got there.
Josh Cardi. He was good at Stanford, but special teams in general, they can't do anything right. Might cost them some close games, but because I had the defense taking a step back, because I had the special teams so bad, I'm only around 8.5. So nothing for me with the Rams, but if these young guys on the defense with this offense, if they stay healthy, they'll be in the mix. So
especially
I don't mind like some upside bets on the Rams to win the division or NFC.
And another thing that I think looms large is just the status of those Niners guys, because it seems like every year the Rams drop 2 games to the Niners, which sets them behind the 8 ball. If they could start winning those games, then it's a whole different story, because I think the schedule, it's not a, they have some tough games. Obviously you play the Lions and the Jets, and the Bills and the Eagles, but a lot of winnable games in there as well. So
Raheem Morris, though, by the way, it's another reason I have the defense taking a step back, losing him.
True, very true.
Internal hire, Chris Chula, not sure he's going to be able to make the same adjustments, and it's going to be pretty similar scheme-wise, I would imagine, but I don't think it's going to be as good. I think that hurts him and Donald. But nothing for me on the Rams.
Yeah, the offense should be good. So probably an over team. I would say that, totals wise. All right, 2 more. Seattle, 7.5 is the win total. Juice to the over at -140, plus 750 to win the division at BetMGM. They move on from longtime head coach Pete Carroll. They move on from Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator. So you got McDonald, you got Grubb, you got. This is just this is going to be a different looking team, because Carroll was the coach for so long, and he had a certain culture there. So, just how do you think this? What do you think are going to be the biggest differences for this Seattle Seahawks team?
Yeah, defense will look drastically different. I'm a huge McDonald guy. He's going to have great game plans every week. He has a great secondary to work with. They improved the defensive line. I think they improved at linebacker as well. So I think this defense overall is improved, and just from a schematic and preparation standpoint, they're going to be much better. And I also love the hire of Ryan Grubb. I think he can hold Geno's hand, similar to what was done last year. Geno, he wasn't great on third downs, but when he was passing with play action and an unpredictable downs, he can make the throws, and they have the weapons. The only thing, so I want to bet on McDonald. I want to bet on Grubb. The only thing and I would bet on like the upside, a little bit the upside, because there is so much change. The only thing that it would probably be like to make the playoffs, maybe a shot to win the division. But the only thing I'm worried about is the offensive line. So
it could be bad.
It could be really bad. Abraham Lucas is hurt right now. They need him to bounce back. As of right now, it's George Fant in there. You did sign Connor Williams. When is he going to be ready? That's a big signing, I think. He's coming off an injury. Your right guard, Anthony Bradford, is bad. Maybe it's Christian Haynes gets in there, the rookie. Laken Tomlinson at left guard is bad. I actually like Charles Cross at left tackle more than a lot of people, but they were like 28th in pass blocking last year, and under pressure, Geno Smith last year, one of the reasons he's bad on third down when he wasn't getting his hand held. Under pressure, he was 25th in yards per attempt, 23rd in big time throw percentage. In a clean pocket, big time throw percentage first, passing grade 5th, yards per attempt 5th. So you got to keep him upright. Seattle, I'm gonna keep my eye on the offensive line, keep an eye on the app. I'll be looking to invest in McDonald, Grubb, and some upside with the Seattle team. I think they're a bit undervalued. I show some value in the over too a bit.
If they just improve situationally on offense, Cross, if just Cross can kind of, and he did improve as a pass blocker. I think.
Yeah, he was getting better late in the years.
If you have one good tackle and Williams continues to play well at center, he's been very good. At least you have the 2 of the 3 most important positions on the line, and then maybe you could use the tight end to block the other side and help Lucas or whoever's going to be at right tackle out. But
Fant and Fant, maybe they're gonna have Fant and Fant next to each other.
Yeah, there you go. So this could work. This could work. Okay, Arizona 6.5 is the win total, -160 to the over. So probably taking some money on Arizona. I understand why. I think Arizona's being a little underrated. Kyler Murray, say what you want about him, but he's always been, as a passer, just a lot more efficient when he has that kind of true number one. When he has DeAndre Hopkins compared to when he doesn't, the numbers are night and day. It's like, well above league average yard per attempt versus well under without him. So Harrison could be a major change. They found something in the run game last year, and they, even if Connor gets hurt, they draft Benson. So There should be somewhat of a floor to their run game. Kyler Murray going to have a whole offseason in the scheme. Remember, he was hurt last year, didn't play till midseason. Trey McBride, another year, he's going to be a key piece. Wilson, year 2. Your boy Greg Dortch should have a pretty big role this year.
Baby, everyone's finally catching on.
Right. So, I mean, the offensive line is a little shaky, but Kyler Murray should be more mobile than he was last year. And then I generally like what who is it, Petzing? What he did on offensively. So my thing is the defense, because Austin Fort is the GM, right? Yeah. Austin Fort, I haven't really agreed with many of the moves he's made, defensively. I think there's been some kind of discrepancies in like his evaluations of talent compared to just mine and what reality is. But so they still might have one of the worst defenses, but I'm bullish on the offense. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the defense just doesn't have much talent. I want to buy this team, but can the defense get stops? Because I think the offense with Harrison, my boy George, McBride, Connor, Murray back. They had a ton of bad injury luck last year. And I'm a huge fan of what they're doing defensively schematically. What some of the things that they're doing, running a lot of interesting like 9 spacing quarters stuff. And it's just really good and innovative defense from like kind of an evolved Fangio thing. But the talent just isn't there. I mean, you need Max Melton to hit. I think he's kind of a good fit for this defense. Buda Baker's still there. You had Sean Murphy-Bunting. So like you got marginally better, especially if Melton can hit as a rookie. But like, I mean, you look up front, there's the linebacker and defensive line. He added some just like replacement level players, but yeah, there's this defense it's just hard. No matter what you're doing schematically, it's hard to see them getting many stops. So, maybe if the injury luck, some close game shootouts go their way, potential team to grab a wild card in the NFL if everything goes right. So if I were to bet on the Cardinals, maybe just a flyer on to make the playoffs. I think, if they just had a couple more guys on defense, they'd be much more intriguing to bet on. But they're just going to be in some high variance shootouts, I believe.
Yeah, this is an over team. This profiles as an over team. Yeah, but at minus 160, I'm not going over 6.5 on that. So, I'm probably going to be betting this team over from week to week because, I really am not a fan.
Greg Dortch, MVP. By the way, I randomly was looking at Bucks futures today, and I was trying to find a win total, and I was searching. I saw a prop. Baker Mayfield to lead the league in rushing 100-1. That is outrageous. That should be 1,000,000-1. It was just offered in the 100-1. What did Baker Mayfield have rushing last year? 100 yards?
A little more. I think he had more than usual, but not anything substantial. Like what it was. Let's see.
Lamar. Well, I bet Lamar has more rushing yards in a game than Baker
163. His entire career, he's been between like 131 and 165 pretty much.
Yeah, and now you have Daniels and Williams and
that's
all
ridiculous.
These other. It's ridiculous. 100-1. Come on. Anyway,
I mean, but you can't bet. No, you can't bet the other side of it. So
yep.
So
please don't bet that. If you take one thing from this podcast, don't bet Baker Mayfield to lead the league in rushing. So quick summary: Arizona and Seattle maybe upside, and then maybe Vikings like an O'Connell bet. Kind of lean Niners under as of now as well. I will be involved on Seattle, Minnesota, maybe Arizona upsides in some form or fashion. How about you?
I think the one that stands out for me is Green Bay 2-1 to win the division. I think that's a fair price because I do think it's a 3-team race. Green Bay over 9.5. I think they get to 10, but it's a little iffy. So I like the division better. And outside of that, I mean, I can't bet San Francisco without knowing. I don't want to bet San Francisco under, and then they get their guys back, and then they're just humming along like usual. So nothing really for me on the NFC West with Arizona as being so juiced to the the over, but I am intrigued. I do think Seattle may surprise people. So that one, I have to look more into. I don't know if I'm there yet with them making the playoffs because I still like Chicago more. I still like the Rams more, but I do think Seattle could be underrated, especially if they can solve that. If they get good play out of at least one tackle. So
I'm
going to look more into
line
Seattle.
too. And it's a team I'm going to be looking to bet this year.
Yeah. So that's week to week. I could see taking taking Seattle. I could see them having a good against the spread record this year. But really, Green Bay is a team that I think could be just kind of borderline, almost like the Lions last year. Just kind of take that next step. Just based on what I've seen down the stretch and the fact that they got rid of Barry finally. So that's how I'm feeling about this division. That's gonna wrap it up. NFC North, NFC West. Don't forget to check out our NFC Part 1, where we go into the NFC East and the NFC South. Our 2 AFC episodes are out right now as well. Be sure to subscribe to the Action Network podcast wherever you get your pods. You can find Stuck on X at Stuckey2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.